Empires at their absolute peak, possessing vast armies, immense wealth, and the most advanced technology of their age, yet they crumble. Not from an overwhelming external threat, but from an unseen enemy within. This is the chilling pattern of history's mightiest civilizations, a story repeated across millennia. They were never stronger, never more confident, than in the years immediately preceding their downfall. Power, it seems, never falls the way we expect it to. The true enemy often lurks in the shadows of success. We tend to imagine grand battles, overwhelming invasions, or cataclysmic natural disasters bringing down giants. But the archaeological record, the historical texts, they tell a different story. A story of slow, insidious rot. A decay so fundamental, so deeply woven into the fabric of society, that it becomes invisible to those living through it. This internal erosion is the silent killer of empires, a cancer metastasizing from within. It's a process often overlooked, until its destructive force is undeniable. Take Rome. For centuries, the very name evoked invincibility. Its legions patrolled the known world, its aqueducts supplied thriving cities, its laws shaped civilization. But beneath the veneer of its golden age, cracks were forming. Not from barbarian spears at the gates, not yet. But from a slow, grinding decline in civic virtue, increasing economic disparity, and political corruption that gnawed at the heart of the Republic, then the Empire. Rome's internal struggles foreshadowed its eventual fragmentation. This isn't just about a few bad apples or isolated incidents. It's a systemic affliction. The sheer size and complexity of an empire, the very things that make it powerful, also make it uniquely vulnerable. Managing vast territories, diverse populations, and intricate economies breeds bureaucracy. And bureaucracy, left unchecked, can become a parasitic force, siphoning resources, stifling innovation, and breeding a culture of inertia and self-preservation that actively resists change, even necessary change. Empires often collapse under the weight of their own success. Maintaining vast armies, funding monumental public works, and sustaining a burgeoning elite are incredibly expensive. When economic expansion slows, or resource exploitation becomes unsustainable, the financial strain becomes immense. Debasement of currency, crippling taxes, and growing debt become common. The wealth, once a source of strength and growth, slowly transforms into a crushing burden that suffocates the very foundations of the state. Hand in hand with economic overstretch comes rampant inequality. A small, privileged elite hoards wealth and power, while the vast majority struggles under increasing hardship. This stark disparity breeds deep resentment, fuels widespread social unrest, and relentlessly erodes the collective sense of belonging. Why fight for an empire that offers no future, no justice, to its own citizens? The social contract breaks down, and loyalty shifts from the state to smaller, often divisive, factions, fragmenting society. Ancient China's Han Dynasty, a beacon of technological and cultural achievement, faced strikingly similar internal challenges. Powerful land-owning families grew unchecked, central imperial authority weakened, and corruption became endemic in the imperial court. Peasant revolts, fueled by poverty and injustice, repeatedly erupted, shaking the very foundations of the empire. The dynasty, though outwardly mighty, was being hollowed out from within by its own powerful factions, setting the stage for centuries of fragmentation. Many powerful empires also find themselves caught in a perilous trap of over-militarization. The very armies that secured their borders and expanded their influence become a crippling expense. Maintaining legions, navies, and advanced weaponry drains immense resources, human, material, and financial, year after year. This can divert critical funds from essential infrastructure, education, or innovation, slowly weakening the core of the state's productive capacity and its ability to adapt and thrive. With vast power comes the inevitable, relentless scramble for control. Political infighting, backstabbing, and pervasive corruption become rampant at every level of governance. Factions prioritize personal gain and loyalty over public good. Decisions are made not for the empire's long-term health, but for short-term political advantage or personal enrichment. This paralysis of effective governance fosters deep cynicism among the populace and critically weakens the state's ability to respond to genuine, looming threats. Perhaps the most insidious form of decay is the erosion of civic virtue. When citizens lose faith in their institutions, when they perceive widespread injustice or feel profoundly disconnected from the collective project, their willingness to sacrifice for the common good diminishes drastically. Self-interest replaces shared responsibility. This fundamental breakdown of the social fabric removes the moral glue that holds a great civilization together, making it vulnerable to forces it once easily withstood. What's truly unsettling is that these warning signs are rarely subtle. Historians, philosophers, even common citizens often voice their concerns, sometimes for generations. Yet, leaders, blinded by hubris, mired in short-term crises, or simply unwilling to confront uncomfortable truths, consistently ignore them. They mistake the outward display of power for true resilience, believing their empire is somehow immune to the patterns of the past, destined to defy historical precedent. The classic Maya civilization, another marvel of its age, built sophisticated cities, developed advanced astronomy, and established complex trade networks across Mesoamerica. Yet, in the 9th century CE, many of their great urban centers were mysteriously abandoned. Not by invasion, but by a confluence of internal factors: environmental degradation from overpopulation, prolonged droughts, and increasing warfare between city-states, eroding any semblance of central authority and collective purpose. A hallmark of advanced empires nearing their internal collapse is often intellectual and technological stagnation. With perceived dominance, the drive for innovation can dramatically wane. Why risk new ideas or invest in challenging old ways when the established ones seem to work well enough? This creeping complacency, coupled with an obsessive focus on maintaining the status quo, starves the very creativity and adaptability that allowed the empire to rise in the first place. The world moves on, but the empire doesn't. This brings us to the chilling paradox. Empires often appear strongest right before the end. Their borders are vast, their armies numerous, their monuments grand, projecting an image of unassailable might. But the rot is beneath the surface, hidden by the dazzling facade of power. This outward show of strength becomes a dangerous delusion, preventing any genuine reform or honest introspection until it is far too late. By then, the internal framework has already irrevocably crumbled. More recently, the Soviet Union presented a modern parallel to this ancient pattern. For decades, it projected an image of immense military might, technological prowess, and ideological unity to the world. Yet, behind the Iron Curtain, its centrally planned economy was stagnating, its political system was riddled with corruption, and its citizens were rapidly losing faith in the ruling party. The outward appearance of a superpower masked profound internal decay, ultimately leading to its sudden, unexpected dissolution. Once the internal rot reaches a critical point, even a minor external pressure can trigger a cascading collapse. It might be a border skirmish, a new trade route shift, an environmental change, or a novel philosophical idea. What would once have been a manageable challenge now reveals the full extent of the internal fragility. The empire, brittle from within, shatters under a force it could have easily withstood, even ignored, in its prime, leaving behind only ruins and lessons. This pattern is not an anomaly, it is a recurring cycle woven throughout human history. From the Akkadians to the Aztecs, from Rome to the Qing dynasty, the story of internal collapse repeats with chilling regularity. Power, wealth, and technological supremacy offer no immunity against the relentless grind of internal decay. The lesson is clear: true strength is not measured by outward display or military might, but by the health and resilience of a society's foundations and its internal cohesion. And here lies the most unsettling question for us today. Are we, in our modern, technologically advanced societies, truly immune to these timeless patterns? Are we recognizing the warning signs in our own time? The growing debates over inequality, the fragility of political systems, the erosion of trust in institutions, these echoes reverberate across history. The temptation to ignore the rot, to focus on outward signs of strength, remains as potent and dangerous as ever. The responsibility, ultimately, falls on leadership. To possess the foresight to identify these subtle, internal threats before they become insurmountable. To have the courage to enact difficult reforms, often unpopular ones, before they escalate into existential crises. To consistently prioritize long-term societal health and shared well-being over short-term political gains. History's fallen giants stand as a stark, enduring reminder of the devastating cost of complacency, of the heavy burden that comes with true power. The fall of an empire is rarely a sudden, dramatic cataclysm witnessed by all. It's a slow, almost imperceptible process. Like a grand old tree, hollowed out by unseen insects and insidious disease, it stands tall and impressive for years, seemingly unyielding. Until one day, a gentle breeze, a minor storm, is enough to bring it crashing down, revealing the emptiness within. The external world often observes the final collapse with shock, but those paying attention can see the internal tremors long before the earthquake. Understanding this recurring pattern is not just an academic exercise in ancient history. It is a critical call to introspection for all societies, especially those at the peak of their influence. For any civilization that values its stability, its prosperity, and its future, the lessons are clear. We must constantly scrutinize our own foundations, confront our internal weaknesses with honesty, and actively nurture the shared values that truly bind us together. True strength is dynamic, requiring constant vigilance and courageous adaptation. The greatest empires in history did not fall because they were fundamentally weak or because their external enemies were simply too strong. They fell because they refused to see their own vulnerabilities, mistaking their outward might for inherent, unshakable resilience. Their deadliest enemies were not at the gates, but in the heart of their institutions, in the minds of their people, in the silent rot that grew unchecked. This is the chilling, timeless truth. The most advanced civilizations always carry the seeds of their own destruction within.